Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater. We're in the Boss booth at Winter NAMM 2019 with a good buddy, Jeff Slingliff. Great to see you, buddy.
Great to see you again.
You have something really cool to check out. Now, you were out and gave us a sneak preview of this earlier, and I'm really excited about it.
I'm really excited to show it to you guys, right, and show it to the world because it's a piece that I think all guitar players want. We all have tube amps. We all have lots of tube amps, right? And we make a lot of solid-state amps, which are great, and everybody loves and adores those as well, but guitar players have many, many amplifiers, but one of the things that's frustrating as a guitar player is you can't get it loud. Nobody wants it loud on stage, and your amp really doesn't sound good until you get that master volume up, and that's part of the thing. It's like if the master volume's not up and it's turned down, you see that feels wrong, right? And that's partially just a quick thing on that is that in tube amps, the last tube is the first tube to clip. And when the master volume comes before that last tube, so when we turn that down, our amp doesn't sound like those classic sounds that we really love and adore and stuff like that. Right. So everything I'm doing right now, I've got that master volume on that Friedman over there cranked, right? But what is a tube amp expander? It's a reactive load device, which is an attenuator. And what we have here is 16 different variations of reactive loads. And the reason for that is because what guitar amps, the way they work is when the speaker moves, it's like a spring, and that spring puts up voltage back up into the amplifier. That causes the distortion that you adjust it every day. It's called the presence knob, right? And that's part of what's going on there. And so we gave 16 because a greenback 24, cabinet with 4x12 cabinet is different than a vintage 30 4x12 cabinet. Each cabinet is different and changes the circuitry and sound of your amplifier. So you don't want just one because then your amp thinks it's connected to a 1x12 and you're trying to get a 4x12 sound. It's not going to always be fun. It's not one size fits all. So we have 16 different reactive loads. We have a continuously variable volume control on this thing, so that's really great. You're not doing the step thing, so I can get right at any volume I want. With it, I also have over here reverb, and what's cool about it is that the reverb, it doesn't just affect us in the studio. When I turn that reverb knob, it actually goes to the amplifier as well. So if you also see here, I have an effects loop. Now with the effects loop, and when I turn that on, when I put an effect in it, like here I've got an MD500 in the effects loop, when I turn that on, it actually goes to the amplifier. So if you've got an old classic amp, like an old, like an AC30, let's say, or an old Plexi, right, you can now add a reverb to it. It never had one. You can now add an effects loop to it. It never had one. How many of our friends and ourselves have taken the classic heads that we love and had them modified to put an effects loop in it, and it never quite sounded right after that?
Yep. I know exactly what you mean.
Don't even go there. We've got it solved for you. Along with that, there's an effects section in it. So if you look on the signal flow up here, we have a compressor that you can turn on and off at any time and assign it to one of the 10 rigs. You've got delay, and you have a choice of the various delays from analog sounding delays to digital delays. Reverb, you can choose from plates and halls and things. And of course, then it splits out, and you can see there's an EQ path on each signal path. So I can EQ what goes to the house or to the studio differently than I do my amp, which is really nice. And then, of course, we have speaker sim outputs that you can either load your own IRs or use one of the 24 that's already built inside of it. It's really pretty intuitive, really easy to use, and what's great is you can purchase an extra foot switch for it, and then everything is foot switch controllable and usable live on stage. So on the back of it, we've got MIDI, so you could use anything you already currently have for in and outs, but that's a nice way to control it. And of course, there's stereo XLR outs for recording, mono front of house out for live, and a USB out so you can use it for an interface on your computer.
Wow, I mean, this is really a comprehensive guitar recording and performance tool. I mean, it really brings everything together into one item.
Yeah, and I think that's why we call it an expander, because it takes in the thing that you love, the thing you've been trying to use, right, makes it again viable, because now you can actually turn up your amp and play it the way you want to instead of leaving it in the closet. And it doesn't just take that to that place of usability, but it gives it a bunch of new features. So you can take an amp from the 1960s, and it now is modernized. It now has presets. It now has, I use the solo boost all the time for EQ, and it's just awesome. Love it.
So is there a limitation on how big of an amp you can use with this? So is there a wattage limitation?
It's 150 watt max input on the device, right? It'll take a 4, 8, or 16 ohm load, so just plug whatever you have in there, match it up, and you're good to go.
I'm really interested in this idea of you're changing the reactive load. There's a lot of attenuators out there. Not a lot of them are truly reactive, and the fact that you have multiple versions of that for different speakers is really fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it's a very important part of the amplifier design, right? When amplifier manufacturers are working on how their amp works, they're working a lot on how that feedback system naturally happens, how they create a circuit between the speaker and the amplifier. And as I said, we adjust it all day long with the form of a presence. So if I were trying to play a 412 cabinet, and my amp were tuned to just a 112, my presence knob on my amplifier is in a different place. It's a different frequency response. It's a different harmonic response than if I was connected to the right cabinet. So now I can dial it in to be exactly what I want, which is really great even if you're just doing straight recording, because I could connect this thing to my tube head, have no cabinets off in the garage. I'm just recording straight in my studio. I can match the cab type here so that the head thinks it's connected to whatever I'm trying to pull up as far as my speaker sim. So if I want to load my favorite IR, like my favorite 112 Deluxe IR, I can now match this and tell it to have the harmonics in feel and dynamics on the power amp side as it would if it was actually connected to that. So I can match both my live cabinet, and I can also match my studio experience.
Right. Wow, you guys have really raised the bar with this whole idea of the attenuator and the interfacing and all that stuff. Really, congratulations, man. Super cool.
Thank you very much.
So let's hear it. Play some examples for us. And before you do that, we'll just wrap up. Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. And thank you for joining me here at the Roland booth of Winter NAMM 2019. It's Jeff Slingloff, Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater.